All right, folks. Here we go.
Hello and welcome everyone. I'm Lindsay Hamilton from TSN, and I have to say it's an absolute privilege to be your host for the next hour for the Hockey Helps the Homeless Canada Life Cup finale. As you can see, I'm sporting my Hockey Helps the Homeless gear. I'm in my work from home studio. This was the Sports Center TSN studio for a few months at the beginning of the pandemic. We are now thankfully in studio, but I know a lot of you are joining us from your homes. And even though we weren't able to meet on the ice this year in each of the different event cities, that certainly did not mean the need for fundraising dollars wasn't as urgent as ever. And I want you all to know that every single dollar counts to ensure the staff at various partner beneficiaries is continuing to provide the homeless and those at risk access to safe shelters, transitional housing, essential supports, and programming. So today really is an opportunity to say thank you, thank you, thank you to all of you who came together to not only support your individual communities, but of course to help shut out homelessness across Canada. So as you all know, players were encouraged to continue fundraising efforts, and we're excited to announce just how well you all did. I was going through the numbers and I was personally shocked. So a huge congratulations. Over the next hour, we're going to hear from John Clemenson of Hockey Helps the Homeless national founding sponsor Canada Life, who will speak on behalf of the organization and announce all the Canada Life Game Changer Award recipients across the country. We will also hear from Melanie Redmond, the president and CEO of Away Home, to learn more about what's working in the areas of policy, planning, and practice in order to transform our response to homelessness. And we'll receive a hello from Andrew Gucciardi, the executive director of Hockey Helps the Homeless. He's going to provide an overview of the last few months of the Canada Life Cup and announce our top fundraisers from the campaign. Of course, we'll also have the chance to hear from some NHL and Olympic hockey greats. I am so excited to talk with Sami Jo Small, Dave Babych, and Brad May in our Hot Stove panel presented by Canada Life. I have a few questions prepared, but you'll also have a chance to ask a few of your own questions in the Q&A box, so feel free to add your own questions there. And again, we just want to say thank you for being game changers in the fight to end homelessness across the country. So without further ado, let's get started. It gives me great pleasure to welcome the Managing Director, Tri-Cities Financial Centre with Canada Life, John Clemenson, to speak on behalf of Canada Life and the importance of their involvement in these events and the need for your continued support locally. John, over to you.
Thank you, Lindsay. Good afternoon. My name is John Clemenson, and I'm happy to be here on behalf of Canada Life. Our company has a long history and deep roots in our communities. At Canada Life, individuals, families, and businesses, and big organizations continue to count on us to keep the promises we make. I'm very proud that Canada Life is a strong corporate citizen. We support your financial, physical, and mental well-beings. Examples of this are fundraising for hospital expansions and upgrades, building a senior walking center around the local rink for the seniors in the wintertime. But my favorite is Hockey Helps the Homeless. We care about Canadians from coast to coast, which is why we proudly support Hockey Helps Homeless for many years. We wholeheartedly believe in the organization's mission that every Canadian should have a safe place to call home and the support they need to thrive. Each year through these events, we're helping provide much needed funds for programs where people experience homelessness. Since the tournament started in 1996, Hockey Helps the Homeless has raised more than $16 million across the country. Just a phenomenal number. Last year, when Hockey Helps the Homeless was forced to cancel some of the tournaments due to COVID, but the focus on fundraising support of the mission did not stop. Though we were unable to lace up our skates and participate physically for the tournaments again this year, we came together to participate in the second Canada Life Cup. You know, hockey is Canada's game. Canada Life, the Canada Life Cup, it all resonates. I just want to personally say thank you to the people on this call. The individual on this call stepped up and showed the responsibility when it was needed most. You responded when it was needed the most. And I just really respect your view and taking on that responsibility when you have the time and the effort to volunteer. I just think it's really important. We're proud to say that despite the challenges, the 2021 Canada Life Cup has beat our 1.5 fundraising goal. This is a result of your hard work and dedication to this important cause. Congratulations. This event brings together participants, hockey pros, my favorite. I always love the female Olympians, supporters from the business community, and local outreach partner as members of one team. Collectively, they raise awareness and making a difference for those affected by homelessness in our communities. Each year, the committee highlights individuals who provided game-changing efforts for the homeless in our community through their efforts with Hockey Helps the Homeless. Those efforts came through fundraising, awareness, leadership, or volunteerism, whatever it took. It gives me great pleasure to announce the Game Changer Award recipients in each of the cities involved this year. Waterloo Region. I'm very proud personally to be involved with the Hockey Helps the Homeless Waterloo Region Board. Very caring and dedicated individuals on that board. In the 7 years since we started in Waterloo Region, we've raised $1.4 million, which equates to over 17,700 beds for the homeless. And as we say in our board meeting, it's all about the beds. In my personal view, I believe a bed provides shelter, comfort, nutrition, safety, and dignity. I always believe that an individual experiencing homelessness is doing the best they can in that moment. This year, the Waterloo Region Committee wanted to recognize an individual in their community that has gone above and beyond in their efforts to make an event a success again this year, in addition to an even larger group of individuals that support their community. The game-changing efforts of the first individual has not only provided awareness for this event, but has resulted in thousands of dollars being donated directly to the beneficiaries in the Waterloo Region, and I saw it firsthand. He was able to adapt once again this year and learn a new way of fundraising through the online auction, in addition to running fundraising events in his apartment building for the residents and launching new initiatives in the community when it was safe to do so. This gentleman has become an advocate for Hockey Helps the Homeless and a partner beneficiary in our community. Congratulations to Mr. Melberry. Waterloo Region also has selected to support 5 beneficiaries this year: Lutherwood, House of Friendship, One Roof Youth Services, YWKW, and the Cambridge Shelter Corporation. This year, the Waterloo Region Committee wants to ensure that the efforts of the staff and volunteers of these organizations are truly recognized for their game-changing efforts in supporting those who need it most over the past year. Please join me in congratulating each of these 5 partners who are also being recognized with Game Changer Awards. Out to Vancouver. With the help of these 2 passionate committee members, the Vancouver silent auction knocked it out of the park. Congratulations to this year's winners, Brianne Carson and Natalie Miller. Brianne led the charge again. With only her 2nd year managing the silent auction, she was able to rally many local donors to support the auction, even through difficult times of the COVID-19. Natalie Miller, whose husband TJ plays for the Canucks, joined the committee this past year and made a huge impact right off the bat. She was able to leverage her connections with the Canucks players, their wives, which led to some incredible prize packages in the silent auction. Natalie was also instrumental in coordinating social media support through our Stay the Puck Home and Canada Life Champions. On to Calgary. Simply put, the Hockey Helps Homeless Calgary would not be the same without the impact of this year's Game Challenge Award recipient, Mr. Aiden Walsh. Aiden is the top fundraiser annually. This year, he raised over $30,000 and is a valued and dedicated member of the committee and his community. Hockey Helps the Homeless will not be able to do what they do in Calgary without Aiden on their team. Congratulations, Aiden. Winnipeg. This year's Game Changer Award recipient is the newest supporter of Hockey Helps the Homeless Winnipeg, Norman Cherry. Norman jumped on the board and led the Winnipeg Life Canada Cup with a very generous campaign. His company, International Tax Services and Accounting, provided a donation matching campaign of $25,000 to leverage the rest of Winnipeg to support Hockey Helps the Homeless. With his help, HHTH was able to surpass their fundraising goal in Winnipeg this year. Great job, Norman. York Region. Like their counterparts in Waterloo Region, this year York Region Organizing Committee has opted to recognize the efforts of the staff and volunteers of the 2 partner agencies they're supporting this year. Congratulations to 360 Kids, new beneficiary partner Blue Door, and those that work to provide essential services, housing, and support for so many once again this year. Not only did you support those in your community, but you rallied your networks to get behind this new initiative and truly make a difference to those in need. Halifax, this is my personal favorite story to weigh in. While this minor hockey team had their season affected by COVID-19, they decided to join the Canada Life Cup and fundraise for the cause. As a team, they were able to raise over $3,500 to support their local community and create awareness for the partners in which this campaign supported. Age certainly isn't a barrier to supporting those in need, and these folks proved it above and beyond. Congratulations to the Bedford U13 Capitals hockey team. Great job. Barry, as mentioned earlier, this event brings together the business community and local outreach partners as members of one team. Collectively, they are raising awareness and making a difference for their community. The HHTH Barrie Organizing Committee has selected 2 Game Changer Award recipients who exemplify that very statement. Hockey Helps the Homeless in Barrie was able to surpass their fundraising goal for the Canada Life Cup, and the support of game changers like Duncor Enterprises and Cintas help accomplish that goal. Congratulations to both winners. Peel Region. Finally, we'd like to recognize the game-changing efforts for those in the Peel Region. Like others today, the Peel Region Committee has chosen to acknowledge the hard work of the staff and volunteers of their 2 partners, Regeneration Outreach and Armand House. These 2 organizations have worked to provide critical service and supports in addition to housing for those in Peel. Thank you for all you do day in and day out to support those who need it most. Join me once again in congratulating the 2021 Game Changers one more time. Through our love of hockey, together we can help build stronger communities and make a difference in all lives of Canadians. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of the program this afternoon. I'll kick it back to Lindsay.
Thank you, John. And yes, a huge congratulations. I have to say, it is so extremely impressive to hear what everyone was able to accomplish despite the challenges of the pandemic. So congratulations to all of you. And of course, a big thank you to Canada Life as well for the continued dedication to communities and to people they support across the country. Thank you. Now, while each of the participating tournaments, of course, have local partner beneficiaries supported through this initiative, we wanted to have someone join us today to speak with respect to homelessness on a national level. Away Home works across sectors to ensure they are co-creating solutions with people who've lived experiences of homelessness, service providers, researchers, policymakers, funders. So here to speak more about Away Home and provide a look in some of the issues of homelessness nationally, the president and CEO of Away Home, Melanie Redmond. Melanie, over to you.
Thanks, Lindsay, and congratulations, everyone. This is very exciting, and it's such an honor to be with you today to celebrate all of these fantastic fundraising efforts in support of Canadians experiencing homelessness. Despite the pandemic, you've found creative ways to ensure that the most vulnerable people in our society have support to weather the storm. Now, I began working on the issue of homelessness at EVA's Initiatives for Homeless Youth in Toronto, which is one of the longtime beneficiaries of Hockey Helps the Homeless. And I know how important every dollar you raise is to the lives of people experiencing homelessness. I also know how critical it is to use a platform like Hockey Helps the Homeless to raise awareness about the issue with mainstream Canada. And I always joke and say, what better way to get the message across to the Canadian public than with hockey sticks? And I say that because I'm an American hiding out in Canada. I now lead Away Home Canada, which is a national coalition reimagining solutions to youth homelessness through transformations in policy, planning, and practice. And that's a mouthful. So what does that look like on the ground? It means working with young people, policymakers, service providers, educators, police, the faith community, and others to prevent young people from becoming homeless in the first place. And we're working on a number of solutions and testing them in real time with community partners across Canada, including a number of the partners that you listed today participating in Hockey Helps the Homeless. And the goal of all of it is to ensure the best possible outcomes for young people and their families. But why the focus on youth homelessness? The Government of Canada's 2018 point in time count of all the people currently experiencing homelessness found that 50% had their first experience of homelessness before they were 25. And given this fact, if we do a good job of preventing youth from becoming homeless, we'll make a huge dent in the problem of homelessness long-term in Canada. And so during the pandemic, communities across Canada are really moving mountains to get people out of shelters and into housing. And when that's not possible, shelter workers are working around the clock to try and keep people experiencing homelessness safe. And I really love that so many of your community partners wanted to celebrate the staff of the partner organizations first and foremost during this difficult time. Your fundraising efforts collectively during this time are more important than ever, as you know. And despite the crisis we find ourselves in, we also have a unique opportunity for us to think about how we want Canada to look beyond the pandemic. And the Prime Minister, along with all orders of government, are asking some hard questions. And thankfully, one of these questions is whether or not we can end chronic homelessness. And I always say that in a caring and affluent society, it's unacceptable that anyone be mired in homelessness for any amount of time. And though it's absolutely critical to provide emergency services to those in need, we have to become more bold and do the difficult work of stopping people from becoming homeless in the first place. And that's prevention, homelessness prevention. We'll always need some form of an emergency response, but if the pandemic has shown us anything, it's that warehousing people long-term in shelters is pretty unsafe. And it's also unjust. And it's time that all Canadians have a roof over their heads, a door of their own to lock, and all the support that they need to heal and to thrive. And so thanks again to Hockey Helps the Homeless and all of your collective efforts to help end homelessness in Canada. There's obviously an important role for government to play in supporting people experiencing homelessness, but we know that government can't do this alone. It's thanks to events and fundraisers like these that we're able to help the most in need in this critical time. And you're all really inspiring to me, so thank you very much. And then back to you, Lindsay.
Thank you, Melanie, for just shedding light on how Away Home is truly making an impact for so many and just for reinstating what an important issue this is. It particularly struck a chord with me, what you said about youth homelessness, and that stat, 50% had their first experience with homelessness before the age of 25. So really just the need to get involved with individuals at an early age. I'd now like to welcome the Executive Director of Hockey Helps the Homeless, Andrew Gucciardi, to speak on behalf of the organization. Good afternoon, Andrew.
Thank you, Lindsay. Thank you very much. On behalf of Hockey Helps the Homeless, I want to welcome everyone on this special day. I know it's Jackie Robinson Day in the United States, and I believe we're only 9 days away from Brad May's infamous May Day goal, which he scored in 1993 to beat Boston. But today is another special day. It's a special day to celebrate the success of the Canada Life Cup Champions Campaign. I'm going to go through and highlight the success of the campaign, thank some special people who allowed us to reach our goal, and then recognize our top fundraisers. As John mentioned, the most recent Canada Life Cup campaign just ended in March, and we were fortunate enough to raise $1.5 million, resulting in about $1 million, $1.1 million for our charity partners. What this means is that through the two iterations of the Canada Life Cup, the one that just ended and the one that ended in September, we raised over $2.8 million and allowing us to grant over $2 million to our charity partners. It's quite an accomplishment, and I really appreciate all the support that has gone into doing that. All of this without a hockey tournament, a true confirmation of the support that HHDH has across the country. And none of this is obviously possible without the support of so many people. It has been a true team effort. So thanks go out to our key influencers, our NHL players, current players, especially the Vancouver Canucks, like John mentioned, to our NHL alumni, to Mike Gardner, who has been supporting Hockey Helps the Homeless from the beginning and continues to be a key player in the Barrie event, to all our NHL alumni who have supported of the program this year, who helped us with our kickoff calls and helped us with our social media campaigns. Thank you as well. And thank you to the pros that are here today. Dave, Brad, Sami Jo, thank you for being here today. Thanks to our media sponsors, TSN, who has helped us promote the campaign across the country, nationally, And to Lindsay Hamilton, who is here today to host the call, a great thank you to you too. Thank you to our beneficiary partners for servicing their communities daily. They're at the front of the lines. They see what is needed every day. They work endless hours to provide what is needed. You give us at Hockey Helps the Homeless reason to work hard, and we will continue to do that for you. Thank you to our sponsors, participants, donors, and volunteers who continually show up and participate even in a year when there is no tournament. I'm going to provide some further recognition to some of the top fundraisers later. A special thank you to our national founding sponsor, Canada Life. Thank you not only obviously for the financial support, but equally important, thank you for the organizational and structural support you provide for Hockey Helps the Homeless. And it is needed from time to time in a small organization. You keep us on task and you allow us to really show our creativity within a structured process. A unique relationship, but one that I believe works well. Thanks to our Hockey Helps the Homeless team, Scott, Matt, Jacqueline, Laura again, and Brian. Your dedication and commitment is the reason for our success. Thank you for delivering such great results. And finally, thank you, most importantly, to the local committees, the local volunteer committees across the country. Thank you for being Canadian, for really being fully invested in caring and supporting for your community, helping people in need, people who, for whatever reason, have fallen on hard times. You are the real example of what it is to be a Canadian. Please continue doing what you are doing. Your passion is contagious. I want to get into some of the key results by city and recognize our top fundraisers across the country, starting with Vancouver. Vancouver raised over $400,000 this year without a tournament, an excellent accomplishment. Top fundraising team in Vancouver was Ferris, coming in at just over $173,000. The top fundraising male participant was Gord Keep. Now, Gord's been involved with Hockey Helps the Homeless for a long time, and I know we look back and we went back as far as 2012. From 2012 to today, Gord has raised over $550,000 for the cause. In this version of the Canada Life Cup, Gord set a personal record and raised over $115,000. So a great contributor, a great accomplishment. Thank you, Gord. Linda Lane Devlin was the top female fundraiser in Vancouver, coming in just over $13,000. Waterloo Region. Waterloo Region, through the leadership of Rob Way, Greg Herner, very strong committee, raised over $360,000. They've achieved an amount equal to or slightly higher than what they would have raised in a regular hockey tournament. A great accomplishment. Top fundraising team in Waterloo Region, coming in at just over $43,000, was Hockey Tech, and top fundraising male was Stu Siegel, coming in over $32,000. Stu's been involved with the cause for many years as well. Now, top female fundraiser was Lynn Mccauley. I want to bring some special attention to Lynn. Waterloo Region, in 2019, Waterloo Region sold out. So typically a tournament has 16 teams. They sold out, and so they created what was called a 17th team. And through that process, what they were able to do was basically fundraise without playing. And this year, Lynn, who was a former member and beneficiary partner representative, was named honorary captain of that team. Unfortunately, Lynn has passed, and you know, it's really memorable to see, and it's really important to see that the 17th team this year raised $26,000 in Lynn's name. Quite an accomplishment. Moving on to Calgary. Calgary's top fundraising team was Hockey Helpers, and top male fundraiser coming in at $30,000 was Aiden Walsh. Sorry, Hockey Helpers raised over $43,000. Top female fundraiser, and who also our volunteer group in Calgary, was Stephanie Colvins, coming in at over $6,000. Moving on to Winnipeg. Winnipeg raised over $115,000 this year. The top fundraising team this year was a Canada Life team, $26,000. And top fundraising male was Dean Barth, who is a new participant in the event, coming in just in around $4,000. Top individual female fundraiser for Winnipeg was Raylene Robertson, and Raylene also led our silent auction committee in Winnipeg. In York Region, the York Region raised over $140,000. The top fundraising team was Universal Logistics. Universal Logistics has been very instrumental with Hockey Helps the Homeless in creating an employee engagement program. Through this program, they've raised over $28,000 this year. The top fundraising male in York Region, who is also a longstanding volunteer with Hockey Helps the Homeless, Scott Jones, coming in just over $3,000. Top raising female, Joanne Serafino, coming in at $1,000. Joanne is also a volunteer with Hockey Helps the Homeless. In Halifax, Halifax raised over $60,000 this year. The top fundraising team was Freedom 55, coming in over $13,000. The top fundraising male, who is also the chair of our committee in Halifax, Don Murray, coming in over $11,000. Top fundraising female, Natalie Richard, coming in at $2,000. She is also a committee member in Halifax. In Barrie, Barrie raised $115,000 this year. Top fundraising team was CIBC Wood Gundy, coming in just over 15. And the top male fundraiser was Ryan White, coming in over at $7,000. Moving on to Peel Region. Peel Region raised over $80,000. The top fundraising team was Team Impact, coming in at 17. And the top individual male, who also sits on our board and is also a co-chair, David Farnfield, raised over $6,000. So I want to thank all of you. These are the top fundraisers. I mean, we're fortunate at Hockey Helps. We have over 3,000 participants who play in these events. So the depth, we have a lot of depth in our organization. And I really am amazed at the achievement that where we are today and where we're going to go in the future. I remain optimistic that we come out of this pandemic and that we will be on the ice soon enough. So we hope to see you then. And I will hand it back to a real pro, Lindsay Hamilton. Thank you.
Andrew, what are you talking about? You are the pro right here. I mean, you even had the stats on Brad May. I have to say, I'm extremely impressed. And I just want to reiterate a huge congratulations to all the winners and a special thank you once again to everyone on this call for your incredible support of this event. Well, it is now time to invite some of the best to ever play the game to our call for our Hot Stove panel presented by Canada Life. A reminder before I introduce our panel, if anyone has any questions they would like to ask, you can write it in the Q&A section at the bottom of your screen. I'll do my best to check on the Q&A regularly throughout our call, throughout our conversation, and get to any questions you may have. I wish I had a spotlight and a bit of a drum roll for these introductions, but for now, my home Sports Center studio is going to have to do. And I have to say, this somewhat feels like sports trivia here. I'm going to read out athletes' bios, and I'll see if you can guess who I'm talking about as I introduce them. Today, we are joined by the man selected second overall in the 1980 NHL entry draft by the Winnipeg Jets. He went on to play 19 seasons in the NHL, played in 2 NHL All-Star games, and played for Winnipeg, Hartford, Vancouver, Philadelphia, and Los Angeles. He was the first NHL player to wear the number 44 on a permanent basis and is the younger brother of former NHL player Wayne Babych. Please welcome Dave Babych. Dave, thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Lindsay. It's great to be on.
I'm so glad you're here. Moving right along, he was drafted by the Buffalo Sabres 14th overall in the 1990 NHL entry draft. He played over 1,000 games with 7 teams, winning a Stanley Cup with Anaheim during the 06-07 season. He is the reason Boston was upset during the 1993 Stanley Cup playoffs. Please welcome Brad May. Brad, thanks so much for joining us today.
Brad actually just had to step off quickly. He should be back shortly, though.
Okay, Brad will be here soon. Wonderful. And last but definitely not least, she is a 3-time Olympic medalist and 5-time World Championship medalist, a 2-time World Championship MVP, and one of the founders of the CWHL. Please welcome Sami Jo Small, who is also involved with our TSN broadcast on International Women's Day. Sami Jo, thanks so much for joining our call.
So great to see you again, Lindsay. Yes, thank you for having me.
Great to see you too. So while we wait for Brad to come back, and I will keep an eye for him on our call, let's just dive right in. I think I can probably take a guess at the highlight of your careers, but I don't want to make any assumptions. So let's start on a fun note with a little story time. Share with us the best moment of your career, the sights, the sounds, the feeling you experienced in that moment. Dave, I'll begin with you.
Oh boy, okay. Well, you know what? There's quite a few highlights, I guess. When I got drafted, I think it was it was 1980. But when I got drafted, I never even thought I would make it until my brother is 3 years older than me, and he got drafted a couple of years before, and I didn't even think I had a chance. Until he made it. And when I got drafted, I got drafted to Winnipeg, which they were struggling at the time. And when I got drafted, I remember they had a press conference for me when I signed my contract, so it was a big deal. You go to Winnipeg, your mom and dad are there and so on and so forth. And I remember the coach and general manager, John Ferguson and Tommy McVie were there. And I was so nervous, and they said, well, aren't you excited? You're just going to be your first NHL season. I'm just like, what are you kidding? I'm just hoping to make the team. And they started laughing, and they go, well, they use a couple swear words, but they go, if you don't make the
we'll
team,
beep those out.
We're all fired, so like it started me off, and it was just one of those things where, okay, maybe now I do belong somehow, but that was kind of how it started. It was a beautiful summer day, and the rest, I guess, is history.
Yes, absolutely. Sami Jo, what about you? Is there a moment that stands out?
Well, I think people would assume that it would be some of the Olympic gold medals. And while those are really special, don't get me wrong, we're not with those teams as long as we are with our club teams. So as a young girl growing up, I never thought hockey would be part of my future. I grew up in Winnipeg during the Dave Babych era. In fact, just did an event this morning with Morris Lukowich and just reminiscing about that time. Ed Stanowski was my fan favorite because he was the goalie. But I really thought I was going to play in the NHL, and that was my dream. And my favorite player of all of them was Lori Boschman, because I thought Lori was a girl. Like, I didn't know that Lori was a man's name too. So I thought girls played in the NHL. I had no idea. And so growing up, I kind of had thought that hockey was going to stop for me after I played midget. So I played basically AAA hockey in Winnipeg all the way through with boys, and I never saw another girl playing. So I think, two things really stand out for me. The very first women's Olympic hockey tournament in 1998 that I got to be a part of, while we didn't win, seeing Cami Granado receive a medal, the gold medal for the Americans on the blue line, obviously it stung and it hurt, and nobody likes to lose. But I think that moment is just so pivotal, because then suddenly young girls could dream about being hockey players. And it was no longer dreaming about playing in the NHL. It was really about making that national team. So that was really special for me. And then getting to play club hockey and being paid to do it and being able to say that this was my full-time career was really special. So winning some of the major championships with my club team, the girls that, we sat on long bus trips with, that we battled day in and day out with, that we became friends with. Those are the moments I think that really stand out for me, because after all of it, after all of the accomplishments and the successes, what I really take away from the game of hockey is the people that I got to meet, just some incredible women that just had such diverse backgrounds that, I maybe never would have met in another field. But here I am, best friends with these girls, and just incredible stories and the adventures that we got to take around the world. I think those were probably the most special for me.
Oh, that's incredible. And I love what you said. Sometimes we assume there would be a career highlight when in fact, a lot of the time is those relationships, because that's really at the core of everything we do, including hockey. I see that Brad is now on the call. Brad, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
It looks really sunny where you are. I'm jealous.
Yeah, I'm lucky. We're down in Southern California for another month, and then we're coming back. But of course, Ontario is under a lockdown, so there's really no race to get back. And I just got my vaccine, my first dose. So
well, that's amazing.
I want to rub it in. It is something. It actually feels good that we're doing the right thing. So,
absolutely.
How you guys doing?
We're doing great. And Brad, just to get you up to speed, we just started our conversation and we dove right in with a little story time, the best moment of your career. And I want it all. I want the sights around you. I want the sounds you remember. I want what you were feeling. Were you excited? Were you nervous? I think I can probably guess a few of your highlights in your career, but again, you can never make assumptions. So what would you say was the best moment of your hockey career?
Well, before I go into that story or stories quickly, I'm not sure what the Dave Babych era was.
What do you mean? I'm not that much older than you are, fella.
We're already getting shirts in here. I love it.
Iconic.
It is, but that has to be early 70s.
Well, Brad, I think I'm having a few connection problems.
Hey, I love you best. You know what? I had the opportunity to play with Dave in Vancouver before he was traded to Philadelphia, and he was a fantastic guy, and he's a leader in Vancouver. Everybody loves Dave, so sorry, let me just, we're just, I'm just a little over right here. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. If I could get a thumbs up, Sami Jo and Dave, can you hear Brad okay?
Hello?
Most of it, yeah.
I'm coming. Tell me when you...
There, he's gone.
But then I lost him again.
Focus on Dave and I.
Okay. I mean, these are the realities, right, of the time we're living in. And unfortunately, with the lockdown comes more Zoom calls. So let's just carry on our conversation. Sami, I'll circle it back around to you. I know you recently wrote a book, The Role I Played. Can you tell us a little bit about, obviously I see in the background behind you too, a little bit about what inspired you to write this book? I know it was a long time in the making, nearly a decade in the making. So just tell us about that process and how it came to fruition.
For sure. So I was taking notes while I was playing, but mostly I was using the notes as mental performance, going over the goals that were scored on me in that particular game, reviewing them, visualizing. And so I had a ton of journals. We took a ton of logbooks, and I always had in the back of my mind, I work full-time actually as a professional speaker, and a lot of my speaker friends have books. And I thought, I'm just going to write a book and sell it at the back of the room and make some money. Easy peasy. Well, when I started the process and I wrote my first iteration, it was awful. And, it was something I could have sold, but I wasn't really proud of it. And what I realized was I was almost a caretaker of these stories that were not told about these incredible women, and these women that I think have been forgotten to history. A lot of people know our team, and they know, maybe some of the big names, but they mostly just know our accomplishments. They don't know the individuals. And so I wanted to highlight people like Jennifer Bottrell, who is doing so amazing on TV now. I wanted people to know who she was and what she represented for me as a teammate. I wanted people to know Delaney Collins, who missed out on 3 straight Olympics by being the last cut. So 5-time world champion, but just missed 3 straight Olympic games. And that those people were just as important to our journey. And so when I started writing the book, it was right after the Vancouver Olympics. It was the first Olympics I didn't participate in, but my husband did. So my husband is a 5-time Paralympic athlete in sledge hockey. So after he got back, I set out to writing it, and I took some writing courses, realized that I'm an engineer by trade. So it took me a little while to figure out how to be informative, how to write in an engaging way. And then I finally got the first real draft on paper, and then we got pregnant, and then I had our first child, and then life just kind of goes into chaos mode. So the draft got put up on the shelf. I had these plans of self-publishing, but after our daughter went to school for the first time, That was the first time I actually had time. And any mother that is on this call knows that you are just kind of doing enough to get by each and every day. And that was the first time that she got on the bus and I realized I had time to just kind of be and to think about what I wanted to do in my life again. And so that's when I dusted off the manuscript and sent it to my eventual publisher, ECW Press. And we got working on the actual stories. And it was really quite a cathartic process for me. I think as athletes, we have some really great moments, but we tend to shade them with some of the negative things that happen to us, or, you know, maybe cuts that happen to us, or things that we didn't think were fair. But in writing the book, it really made me realize that it is the journey, and it's about the people. And there are so many more amazing moments than there were tough moments. And I'm just so grateful to have lived in an era of really change in women's hockey, where we went from obscurity to the limelight. And I wanted not only to share some of my teammates' stories, but I wanted Canadians to really realize just how strong this team was and how privileged I felt to be a part of this incredible team. So it did take me 10 years to write, although it took me a lifetime, I guess, to live. But I think in the end, what came out was something that I was proud of, that I think really showcases, like I said, these incredible women that I played with and their stories and their struggles, and makes us more real, I think, to most Canadians. But it was certainly a dominant era for women's hockey in this country.
Amazing. And Sami Jo, great things don't happen overnight. So if it took 10 years, it took 10 years.
True. That is true. At least my daughter wasn't going to university at the time. So
there you go.
Yeah.
And I highly encourage everyone on the call to check out Sami Jo's book, The Role I
Thank
Played.
you, Lindsay.
Brad, I see that you are back on the call.
Yes.
So let's check your connectivity. Can you give me a quick hello and we'll see if it's working all right?
I think I'm good right now. Yes.
Oh, beautiful. Crisp sound. I love it. All right. Let's go back to the question I asked you before we cut out. I know you were in the midst of sharing one of your greatest moments in sport. You were talking about the Dave Babych era. So jump right back in.
No, I wanted to rib Dave a little bit, but Sami Jo, I love your story. And as a Canadian, I'm so incredibly proud of, you know, all the young men that excelled and achieved the great things. But for the women's game, you guys are the custodians. You're the pioneers for our sport, our young girls that are playing now. So congratulations for everything you've done. For me, I would say I have three. Three great, neat moments. So I was lucky enough to win a gold medal with the World Junior team in 1990-91 in Saskatoon. And as a young guy, just been drafted to win a World Junior gold medal was fantastic. And then I scored a goal in 1993 with the Buffalo Sabres in overtime. My nickname to this moment has been Mayday, which a great moment. It's obviously past. It's many, many years ago, but my nickname still lives. And you know, not many times does a player have a moment, a defining moment. So for me, it was a goal against the Boston Bruins, and was able to beat Ray Bourque, and met Ray way after the fact. But you know, just very, very cool winning a series in the Stanley Cup playoffs that we all dreamt to do. And then in 2007, I was traded late in the year from Colorado at the trade deadline to the Anaheim Ducks. 16 years into my career, and I was fortunate enough to be traded to the Anaheim Ducks. 3 months and 1 week later, we won the Stanley Cup. And for me, like the gold medals that Sami Jo talked about, and all of these things, to win the Stanley Cup was a dream come true. And I was just fortunate that I got, you know, picked or traded to the right team and a great group of guys. And the one thing I can say, I was the only guy that was traded at the deadline, the last guy added to that team, and I didn't screw it up. So that's a good thing.
Absolutely. And Brad, I want to circle back around to that famous call from 1993. Earlier on our call today, Andrew Grucci already mentioned we're just 9 days away from the anniversary. So that's a special fact if you didn't know it. But
I know it.
The countdown is on, 9 days. Brad, take us back. Did you know it was going to blow up as much as it did? I mean, we all got to hear the legendary call. You, of course, were on the ice. Actually being in that moment, ice level, what did you make of it immediately after it happened?
the really interesting part. So we were playing. We were down 5-2 going into the third period, and the Bruins were the best team in the league going into the playoffs that year. And we had got a nice lead in the series. We were up 3-0, but we were down 5-2. So we scored 3 goals in the third period. Of course, on the backs of Pat LaFontaine and Al McGillney, and Yuri Himlev scored the tire. But we went into overtime, and you know, it's a moment in time. I was fortunate enough. I got to play with Patty and Alex. Alex scored 76 that year, and Patty was runner-up to Mario Lemieux in the scoring race during that season. And so I was on the ice a lot for a lot of goals, but I never touched the puck. I'd skate to the middle of the slot. I'd drive the net. I'd open up room for these guys. They'd play catch with the puck. And so I'm not diminishing my role, but certainly I was the number 3 guy there. But in overtime, I got the puck and everything happened. So I ended up scoring. And the cool part, I didn't know, of course, I've never heard the name Mayday before. Of course, I've heard the name, but never associated with me. And I think everybody that watched it, crazily, there was two feeds. We had a TV crew in Buffalo, and Rick Jeanneret actually was doing radio, ironically, and they matched the radio call to the video. And I don't think that night anybody that was in Western New York watching the local feed, they didn't hear the Mayday call until tomorrow, when they actually meshed the calls. And Rick Jeanneret the next year ended up doing a simulcast. He did radio and TV because he was that good. So his illustration of this whole thing was amazing. And when he was inducted in the Hall of Fame, the closest part of me ever getting to the Hall of Fame was when Rick was inducted, I want to say 7 or 8 years ago, and they played that call when he was actually being inducted. So awfully proud, tied at the hip with Rick Jeanneret, but it was actually a radio call, not TV. So I didn't hear it. I didn't hear the call until the next day.
And when you heard the call, did you immediately know this is going to live on for decades?
Well, I don't know about decades, but I'll tell you what, I at that moment, my head's huge anyways, and it got a lot bigger. It got a lot bigger. It was a ton of fun. And just talking about it, there's moments when I'm around the Bruins, and I've been around Ray a number of times since then, and upon retiring, and that's the only time I get embarrassed or a little bit, shy. Of course, when people are calling me Mayday in front of him, but outside of that, it's a gift that keeps on giving. It's a great nickname, clearly. And you know what, when 27, 28 years later, going into the playoffs, I'm sure in a couple weeks now, when the NHL, goes into the playoffs, we'll see that call and we'll hear that illustration once again. It's cool. It's a moment in time, but I was lucky enough to have that defining moment.
Amazing. And it is a legendary call. I know we'll be hearing it for years to come. I mentioned that we're going to receive questions perhaps from other individuals on the call today in the Q&A section. So Dave, this one's for you. It comes from Glenn Garriock, and he asks, Dave, there was some unhappiness in Winnipeg recently that the Jets didn't pick up another defenseman prior to the playoffs. What kind of shape are you in?
Well, I'll put it this way. If you skinned me, I'd be ripped. So I would need a little liposuction, I think. And but you know what? I know. I think I was a little disappointed too, because I live in Vancouver, and I'm obviously a Canuck fan also, but I do watch the Jets quite closely, and they might have needed one. I would be glad to play. God, I would love to. But I think I would last one period. I'd give her for one period, and then they'd have to drag me off. I think all my hammies would be gone and everything would be pulled.
Do you get out on the ice often these days?
We do. Our alumni, we skate once a week for sure out here. But of course, with what's going on, they kind of shut that down. So, it's like riding a bike. I go as fast as I used to, so I'm not breaking any land speed records out there. So, but we still have a lot of fun.
I love it. Well, I do definitely want to talk about what's going on right now in both the women's and the men's games. So this is always fun. I played it last night on our NHL panel. First round playoff predictions. Can I ask all of you for the matchup that you're dying to see? Not to put you on the spot or anything, but Brad, let's start with you.
Well, I'm pretty. I've been down this winter down south, and I want to see like the Canadian teams. Obviously, it's really cool for all of us that we're able to, the first 2 rounds will be Canadian matchups, which, it's hard because it really has never happened this way. So for me, I would love to see the Toronto Maple Leafs do well. They've clearly went out and they've bolstered their team by getting some quality veteran players, and they've got depth. So obviously I'm an Ontario guy. I'd love to see that. I would love to tell you, because I played for Vancouver twice, that I want the Canucks to win, but clearly that's not going to happen. And then they've been decimated by this coronavirus, and it's I wish everybody in BC and Canucks, the players, the coaches, but all the fans, I wish them the best. But I would love to see at some point, if we could, Toronto against Montreal, but that's probably not going to happen either. But my team, 2 teams that I would say look out for if you're a betting person, the Colorado Avalanche have a very good chance of not only winning the first round, but probably going very deep, and the Vegas Golden Knights. Those 2 teams are so strong in the West. I really like the makeup of their teams and the way they play. They play such an exciting brand of hockey.
Absolutely. And, because we have the North Division here, I think a lot of Canadians have watched Canadian hockey so much more so this year than other years. But as you mentioned, Vegas, you're looking terrific down south.
Yeah, they are. And they've, the one thing that they have, and going into the season, not to belabor any points, but goaltending wins, right? Like it takes 25, 29 players, depending on injuries, players coming in and out of the lineup, and some players that, were in the American Hockey League all season. You're going to see some faces that you've never heard or heard their names anyways. But goaltending is such an important part of it. And Vegas, of all the teams, they went into the season with, $12 million committed to both goaltenders, Marc-Andre Fleury and Robin Lehner. And I think that's probably their strength, that if one guy falters, the other guy will come in and pick it up. So I think that's a huge strength. And I think for Colorado, even thinking back through the pandemic, but the playoffs, in the fall that we just watched, Colorado should have went deeper, but they ran into goaltending issues. So I think the Golden Knights are strong in net, which, gives everybody in front of them a lot of confidence.
Absolutely. Sami Jo, do you have a first round playoff prediction for us?
Well, I am a Jets fan through and through, let's be honest. So them going deep in the playoffs would be amazing. But Lindsay, with you, I worked in International Women's Day, and I did the Vancouver-Montreal game. So I did a ton of research into those 2 teams. And what you get I don't know if you find this working for TSN, you get a certain affinity for certain players and teams because you get to know them as individuals. And Quinn Hughes' mother played on the 1992 World Championship team for Team USA. And I know the family quite well. They lived right close to me here. And when I first met them, they were just these young punk kids, but the family themselves are just so genuine and so nice. And so to see him do well, and the Vancouver Canucks, I, of course, fell in love with Thatcher Demko playing in Vancouver, such a strong goaltender, just solid presence. And then, of course, getting to follow along Carey Price's career in Montreal was really special. And to get to comment on some of, his tendencies on TSN was really special. But I think more importantly than that, let's talk about the Women's World Championships that's starting on May 6th.
Yes, I love the fun.
So last year at the World Championships, Canada lost for the first time ever in the semifinals to Finland. Finland almost upset the US in the final. So for the first time in women's hockey, Canada is going into the championships as an underdog. But in Halifax, they do have the benefit of being the hometown favorite. And Halifax is actually talking about being able to allow some fans into the stands. So hopefully that will generate some excitement. The girls actually leave pretty soon because they're going to have to quarantine in Halifax prior. So I'm excited to finally watch some elite level women's hockey. We've missed that over the last year, and I just can't wait for that.
Wonderful. And Dave, prediction time?
All right. Well, I have to agree with Maisie there. Vegas should come out, or Colorado, I think, out on that side. I'm a little disappointed with Vancouver. I know it was just a big mess this year, and it's unfortunate. We want everyone to be well, and I thought maybe it would be Winnipeg and Calgary in the first round, but because of some of the free agency and trades that might have happened, and so it would have been fun. But Toronto, and it hurts me to say, I think they should be favorites going into this whole thing. I think they have a very strong team, and like I said, it would hurt us out west here because we're always kind of against the Toronto side just for whatever reason. We used to love playing in Toronto because there were so many guys from Ontario that guys would be flying. So most of the time you would win. And but anyway, so Toronto, it would be great for Toronto and Montreal to play against each other. What a traditional matchup that would have been. Who else I like, and I'm not sure who else does, but I'm a huge fan of Sidney Crosby. Always have been. I love the way he plays. I still think he's the top 2 players in the league. Just what he does. I think the quiet things he does, and if he gets hot and that team gets hot, I think they can cause a few problems also.
Amazing. Yeah, we were talking about it, as I mentioned on the panel last night. I know for me in the North Division, I know Montreal and Calgary play a number of times in the last month, but as of last night, Calgary, they had to make up 6 points, Montreal 3 games in hand. So not impossible, but to see the Leafs and Habs in action for the first time since 1979 in the playoffs would be pretty neat. But Dave, as you mentioned, I don't know, seeing Pitt and Washington go head to head, a little Crosby and Ovi action, that would be a lot of fun too. We're almost running out of time, but I saw one more question from the audience, so I want to ask it really quickly before we log off. This is for you, Brad, from Carl, and the question is, who was your toughest fight? So quick little story time to sign us off. Your toughest fight.
Oh, you know what? There's so many. The toughest fight was against Derek Bugard, the late Derek Bugard, and I always, when I'm asked that question, obviously Derek's not alive anymore, and I want to give him the props he deserves. He was a great teammate. He protected his teammates. Obviously, way too soon that he left us. But he's 6'8". He was just dusting the National Hockey League. Every guy that went up against him was, basically a severe underdog. And I had hurt in the playoffs the year we won the Stanley Cup. I got suspended for a couple games because late in the game, altercation happened, and I actually hit one of his teammates in a fight. I got suspended, but Derek stood up the next time. I knew I was going to fight this guy for 5 or 6 months whenever we played Minnesota the following season. And so the lead up to it, the one thing I would say is the anticipation of death is worse than death itself, I think. Going into that fight or that game, everybody around me knew what was going to happen. And just the anxiousness, the anxiety that I felt. My wife it was funny, the day before, she was not happy with my demeanor over the last couple of days, and I was probably short fuse and wasn't a good father for a couple of days because all I wanted to do was get out of Sunday feeling all right and not waking up in a hospital bed. But she played a song for me on the Saturday. We played a Sunday afternoon game, and she came into the kitchen with a laptop, and she's like, "Hey, I got a song for you. You've been a jackass for the last 3 days." And she played U2 Sunday Bloody Sunday. And I was like, that's brutal. So she played this
classic for you there, eh?
Yeah. And you know what? It fired me up, and it turned out to be all right. But I did pretty good. Just being on my feet at the end of it was a win for me. But he was the most, I was most afraid of Derek Bugard, his size and his track record. But I was lucky. I didn't have to fight Joey Kosher or Tony Twist, who I would say through our time or my first 10 years or whatever it was in the NHL, those guys were the toughest, I think. And of course, Bob Probert was a champ. I never had to fight him. I tried to a few times, and he was I was like a mosquito. He was like, get away from me. But the Derek Bugard fight was definitely the most memorable, the one that I would never, ever want to think about again. But awfully proud that I stood up for not only myself, but the crest, obviously the Anaheim Ducks. And so when you do something on the ice, you have to be accountable. And I hurt his teammate. I knew what I had to do. And, I'm proud of the way I stood up, but I just wish that they had a lesser tough guy on their team and it wouldn't have been as anxious for me.
Wonderful. And I love the Sunday Bloody Sunday U2 classic
Yeah.
thrown in there too.
Hey,
that's hilarious.
I've been married 28 years, and I'll tell you what, she gives it to me all the time. She's a tough one for sure.
Great. Well, we're wrapping up today. It is after 5 o'clock. Sami Jo, I know you want to say a quick thank you though, so I'll let you throw that in before we say goodbye.
Yeah, I just wanted to say a huge thank you to Canada Life and to all the incredible volunteers that Hockey Helps the Homeless has, and to everybody that fundraised. And just a really special shout out. I know that Andrew had mentioned at the beginning the passing of Lynn from the Waterloo region, and to condolences to her and her family and to all the people that knew her, and just an amazing feat that you guys raised so much money in her name. So that's just really special, this community of Hockey Helps the Homeless. It just is such a privilege to be a part of. So thank you to all for trying to put roofs over people's heads. And like they said earlier, to have a place that you can lock and be at home is just so special.
Absolutely. And I know that Dave and Brad echo your sentiments.
Yeah,
Brad,
sure.
Sami Jo, Dave, thank you so much for taking the time and joining us today for our Hot Stove panel. I learned so much. I'm sure everyone did as well. Thank you for those amazing stories. It was a great walk down memory lane.
Yeah, pleasure. Good seeing everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And on that note, that ends our session today. So again, thank you everyone so much for being part of the Canada Life Cup. Thank you for allowing me to be part of your program today. I thoroughly enjoyed myself. And for those that couldn't join us today, a full recording will be sent out to all of our players and sponsors in the coming days. So keep your eye out for that. Thank you again from the bottom of our hearts for joining this new initiative, for committing to being game changers in the fight to end homelessness, which is particularly important through this time right now in the pandemic. Thank you for taking the time to join our call today, and have a great evening. Take care.
Bye.